I am very excited to announce our guest artist clinician for this workshop. He has some really fun and unique ideas to help us all with our practicing at all levels, wherever we're at. Please welcome the Assistant Professor of Woodwinds at South Texas College, Dr. Mike Gersten.
Uh, Thank you for having me, and thank you to everyone who's here and who's coming in. Um, Shout out to the International Clarinet Association Youth Committee, not only for having this, but they're having a whole series of these sorts of clinics. So be sure to be on the lookout for those. I was at the last one, and it was very, very good. So I like to talk about today is obviously practicing. Um, and throughout this, if you have questions, put them in the chat, and Shannon or somebody can interrupt me or something like that, because there's no way I'll pay attention to the chat. But you can interrupt me, because really this is about getting information to you, and so if there's anything you want to know, put it in the chat and I'll at least do my best. But I want to talk about our general approach to practicing. So I'll I'll talk about a few specific practice techniques and exercises, but I won't go into a lot of detail on specific exercises. So for that, I do have links to some things at my website, which apparently had an extra S in it. So I just took that out. But MikeGersten.com/practice, and I have links to more specific things. Um, so I came up with this after a lot of experiences with my students, and different students, same experience. Student comes in for a lesson, they play something, and I give them the look that teachers give and say, you didn't practice enough this week. And they say, but I was practicing 3 hours a day. I'm like, well, it sounds like you practice 10 minutes a day. And we talk, and I have them show me how they practiced, and we find out that they were just practicing really inefficiently. And so they were playing their clarinet for 3 hours, but they were doing 10 minutes worth of work. And that's just not sustainable. And none of us have all of the extra time. We'd much rather be efficient. So as I talked with my students and thought about what it means to be an efficient practicer, it I was thinking, well, these are all the same things athletes do when they practice. And then I realized, well, okay, as clarinetists, we actually are athletes. Um, and so I'll explain that first. Let's see. One second. Why is this not? There we go. So, what is an athlete? And I have a GIF of Steph Curry there. So, an athlete is a person who has developed particular mental and physical abilities, um, in order to do specific tasks. I'm going to get rid of that red dot. There we go. No more red dot. And so if we look at this GIF of Steph Curry, right? Obviously, the physical ability is clear, right? Maintaining his dribble, falling down, getting back up, scoring the basket. That's impressive. But also the mental focus to be aware of what's going on, to do, think about 5, 10, 50 things at the same time, right? These are all things elite athletes have to do. As clarinet players, and we're looking at Anthony McGill. If you don't know, the principal clarinet of the New York Philharmonic, check him out. Um, everything we do involves muscle, right? If we're talking about fast and even technique, finger muscles, and really arm and beyond that, but finger muscles. If we're talking about voicing and articulation, that's our tongue tongue muscles. If we're, you know, how does Anthony McGill get his beautiful tone? In part, embouchure muscles. I could have gone on. You know, our breathing is controlled by, you know, our abdominal and core muscles, at least in part. Um, so as clarinetists, we're developing muscles just as much as athletes. Maybe the biggest difference is I'm not going to the gym and like showing off my embouchure muscles. You know, like that's maybe not a thing we do. But it's all developing muscle in the right way. And then on top of that, we also need focus and knowledge. You know, basketball players and other athletes may have to deal with distractions from fans yelling or flash bulbs from cameras. We have crying babies and phones going off during our performances. You know, they have to scout their opponent. They have to know that this pitcher likes to throw curveballs when they're two strikes. We do that research on the music we're playing. We listen to other recordings. We do score study. So it's really the same skills, just in different ways. And so knowing that, we can craft our approach to practicing in a much more targeted and focused way. So the first thing is warming up, right? Because if we're going to acknowledge that we as clarinetists are athletes and we are using muscles, we have to warm them up. It doesn't feel that way when you're young because, of course, when you're young, you can do all sorts of crazy things and your body's just like, your body bounces back. But if you look at statistics, 50 to 76% of professional musicians have reported sustaining musculoskeletal injuries. And that is serious. Some of those can end careers. And so preventing that starts at a young age. And so just warming up. And that doesn't have to be elaborate. You know, start your session with something light. So if one of the things you want to work on in a practice session is some really fast technical passage, don't start playing it really fast. Start at a slower tempo. You know, play through it slowly just to warm up, or play long tones or slow scales, something um, that kind of gives your muscles time to loosen up. Stretch. Uh, there are great resources. I think I have one of them on my website. I'll double check after this. They're great resources that for musician stretches. And you know, I'm not going to go over them because I'm not a medical professional. And when it comes to this sort of thing, you should get that information from a medical professional. But essentially, very light stretching. You know, you shouldn't feel burning or hurting when you stretch. But that again just lets your muscles kind of loosen up and helps avoid injuries. And as a side note, also helps you play more evenly, because that's always a tricky thing with clarinet is maybe you can play fast, but if it's not even, it doesn't matter. This is also a good time to pay attention to your playing position, right? I have a friend who is a weightlifter, and if a weightlifter with all that weight they're lifting, if their form is just a little off, they can do very serious damage to their back, to their knees. You know, it's not that like if you slouch when you play, you're going to break your back. But think about how many times a single finger moves during a practice session, during a rehearsal. You know, add up all the times this finger moves over the course of a week. And so if there's, let's say, tension in your arm, that adds up over time. So it's not a lot of weight and a lot of force each time, but little by little, you're doing damage, and eventually that can become very serious. A lot of times you hear no pain, no gain, right? And that's definitely what I thought when I was younger. Oh, I have a little pain in my arm, push through it and it'll get better. Um, yeah, that's really dangerous. That's a surefire way to get hurt. So feeling pain doesn't necessarily mean you have to stop practicing, but you should do something else. So if it's with me, it's always this arm where I can sometimes feel some tension or a little bit of pain. So when that happens, if I'm working on something where these fingers are moving quickly, maybe that's when I do an articulation exercise or tone. So do not push through pain. Pain is bad. And if you have chronic pain, talk to your teacher, talk to your doctor, because you may need some sort of treatment, or you may need to work with your teacher on your playing position. When you are practicing, it helps to have a balanced routine. Um, so again, think about my weightlifting friend. If she only ever worked out her right arm, the right side of her body, she'd look like our clarinet friend on the screen there, right? Super ripped on the right side, and then really like me, like my arms on the left side, because I don't lift weights. Maybe I should. Um, it's the same thing, right? If you look at people who go to the gym, and or if any of you do, you probably have leg days and arm days and days where you do cardio, or maybe you do a little bit of all of them in each session, because we recognize that um, you have to work out all your muscle groups, otherwise it's unhealthy. And if we take that same approach to clarinet, we want to work out why I call the 4 T's. Those are tonguing, tone, tuning, and technique. Really broad categories, but if you spend all of your time doing long tones, and you're focusing on your tone and you're playing with a tuner, that is fantastic. But if you're doing that and not working your tongue, then you're going to get a piece of music where all of a sudden you have to tongue the 16th notes at 120, and your tongue won't even know what to do. And it's the same thing with, if you spend all of your time on technique, and you can play you can play Daphnis and Chloe super fast, but you haven't spent any time on tone or tuning, what does it matter if you can play fast if you don't sound good? And so there are a lot of great warm up routines. What I like to do is first thing in the morning, I do my warm up routine that focuses on all four of these things. And I have links on my website. I'll have it up again at the end, but I have links on my website to different warm up routines I like. I don't do one all the time because I just my attention span is pretty short, and I get bored with things. And so I'll have a few different, I have a few different tone exercises. I have a few different tuning exercises. And so that way I can rotate through them. So I'm always doing these 4 things, but I'm working on them in different ways. And that sort of keeps me more engaged. I know there are some people who like doing the exact same thing every day. They've been doing it that way for decades. And that's great too. But it's, as long as you're focusing on these 4 things, it almost doesn't matter which routine you choose, which specific warm-up routine. um, I should also note, I know there may be a variety of clarinetists here, so there may be people here who are practicing 2 or 3 hours a day. There may be beginning clarinetists here who are practicing 10 minutes a day, which is what I recommend when I teach beginners. I say, try to practice 10 minutes a day. If you're practicing 10 minutes a day, then maybe you rotate through each one of these every day, right? Tonguing one day, then tone the next day, then tuning, then technique. If you're practicing 2 or 3 hours a day, then you might be doing a 1 hour warm up where you're focusing on all four of these every day. So, with all of this stuff, it's important to fit it to where you are. The warm up routine of Anthony McGill is not going to be the same for me or probably for you, because the amount of time he's playing, what he's doing, where he's at as a clarinetist is, I know, very different from where I am. And so don't feel like you have to do one warm up routine specifically as written. And I'll get a little more into what that looks like with specific exercises. Another thing I think we can take from athletes is to mix things up. So again, I have Steph Curry here. He's one of my favorite basketball players to watch. And he's known for his ball handling skills. And so I looked up, I mean, this is a couple years old, so I don't know if he still does this, but at least as of 2 years ago, when he did a dribbling workout, this is what he did. And it doesn't really matter what the specific drills are. What matters is this adds up to about 200 reps. So he's getting a lot of repetition in when it comes to dribbling, but he's doing it in all of these different ways. It's not just dribble forward and backwards, up and down the court. Because if he did that, he'd be very good at dribbling forward and backwards. But what about sideways? What about diagonal? What about turning around? He'd be very good at doing one thing, but he needs to be so comfortable dribbling a basketball that he doesn't need to think about what he's doing. So you can probably see where I'm going with this. And I talk to my students about this when it comes to technique. So most of us, when we learned our major scales in school, we learned them like this. Maybe starting out it was one octave and then two, but it's always ba ba da 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 da. And that's great. But what happens is a lot of my students can only play scales with this rhythm. And then the other problem is, if you're playing, so this is a C major scale, if you're playing a piece of music in the key of C major, it doesn't necessarily stay within this range, right? Because there are notes in the key of C major that go below that C. So if this is the only way you play your C major scale, you're ignoring all of those notes. And then what happens when you get a piece of music that has you playing in your low chalumeau register? So instead, what I have my students do and what I do myself is I play full range scales. And some of you may be looking at this and going, there is no way I can play that high. How dare you even show that to me? I'm offended. And what's nice, remember what I said before, you should tailor all of this to where you are. So with my students, I usually always have them go down to the lowest note on their instrument that's in the key. So in this case, it's that low E. And then as far as the high note, that depends on where you are. So it might be that G above the staff is your highest note, in which case that's what you would play. And then as you got comfortable with that, maybe you'd say, okay, well, now I'm going to add the A. I'm going to expand it a little. All right, now I'm going to try going up to C. So as you get comfortable, you can expand. But the important thing is that you're playing your entire range on every scale, and that's getting you comfortable in the key. I like to talk about keys as like language, and we want to be fluent. So by playing the entire range, we're becoming fluent in this case C major. But that's only part of the story, right? Because if you're playing a piece of music in the key of C major, it's not going to be straight 16th notes most likely. So that's when you can, play with different articulations. Here I obviously have slur two, tongue two. But what I like to do is take this pattern and keep moving the slur around. So slur the first two, and then play it one time where you slur the middle two, and then play it one time where you slur the last two of each grouping. And so then you're getting comfortable with different articulation patterns with this same scale. And then you can play different rhythms. And I could keep going with different rhythms. So this is a place where you can customize. If there's a rhythm you're trying to work on in a piece of music, one that's giving you trouble, play that rhythm in as part of your scales. Kind of combine, and that's helping you just get really comfortable in that key in various ways. So take that Steph Curry approach of practicing one thing 20 different ways to get that comfort level. But then you can also use this to work on difficult passages. So this is a measure some of you recognize from the Mozart Concerto. And to this day, I hate this measure. And it's because of that A, G sharp, B. And every time I play it, I play the A, and then on the G sharp, my fingers want to fly up. And then it makes the B impossible. So I wind up playing, right? And the B just doesn't speak. So this is a place where you can say, okay, no, this measure is difficult. So let me take that Steph Curry approach and play it a bunch of different ways. I'll play it as quarter notes. I'm not going to play all of these, and now maybe I'll play it with a different rhythm. And now maybe I'll reverse that rhythm. And then play a different rhythm still. And you could do different articulations. The thing that always drives people crazy, but is really helpful, one of the rhythms you can do is you can swing it, which of course drives people crazy because Mozart and swing just seems weird. And this is something you can do at any level. If you're a beginner who's just working on their first three notes, try playing those first three notes at different volumes, different dynamic levels. Try playing different rhythms, different tempos. And then obviously, if you're a more advanced player and you're playing something really difficult, some technical passage, then this is an approach you can take as well. So something we can talk about with, so this is especially useful with articulation, is thinking about how you develop speed versus endurance. So on the left, Jesse Owens, very famous American sprinter. On the right, a stock photo of someone who's apparently Canadian. But if you think about, if you decided to start training for a marathon, as soon as we're done, you're like, I'm going to go, I'm going to train for a marathon in the fall. And you're like, I'm going to train for a marathon, which is a little over 26 miles, by going outside and running as fast as I can until I can't run anymore. And I'm just going to do that every day. I'm going to run as fast as I can until I can't run anymore. You would probably get that makes no sense. A marathon is a long distance race. So if you're going to train for it, you're probably going to run in general slower and longer distances versus a sprinter where you're going to run faster for shorter distances. And of course, that's what we should be doing with our articulation exercises. So this on the left, it's just a little excerpt. I think this is from Howard Klug, a longtime clarinet professor at Indiana. And these I really like, these short bursts. And that's for speed, right? I really like that the first one is all on one note, the second one changes notes. So that way it's getting your articulation even on one note, and then on the second one, lining it up with your fingers. But you have short bursts, which let you work on speed. So that's a faster tempo. If you're working for towards endurance, being able to articulate for longer periods of time, which we have to do sometimes, then you'd want to do something like I have on the right, and that I took from, I think it was Bill Jackson's warm up, which is on my website, or a link to it is on my website. And here we have 4 measures of 16th notes, which obviously you need a slower tempo to be able to get through. So the one on the left and the one on the right should be very different tempos. So it's just thinking about what is the purpose of what I'm doing. And a lot of times I think that's where we kind of fall short with the efficiency of our practicing, is we're not thinking, why am I doing this? What is the purpose? And if we can answer that question, what is the purpose of this? Then we on our own, really, we a lot of times you don't even need a teacher to tell you. You can kind of develop or focus your own practicing just by knowing what the goal is. All right. So something athletes do is they always review the game tape, right? And I keep mentioning Steph Curry, so he's the one I'm gonna keep bringing up in this presentation. But I read that there was he's known for being a really accurate shooter, and there was one game where he just had an off night, like couldn't hit a shot. So afterwards, he and his trainer sat down and, they watched the game tape, and they noticed that his left foot was out just a little further than normal when he was shooting. And because of that little, I mean, we're talking inches, but that little bit of difference with his foot threw off the rest of his body. It threw off his balance or whatever. I'm a terrible basketball player, but it threw off the rest of his body, and that caused the off shooting night. So then they spent time just focusing on that left foot placement, really nothing else, just focused on that left foot. And sure enough, the next game he shot like 60%, which is really good. So for us, hopefully you've already had teachers telling you should be recording yourself. And we do that for a few reasons. I like recording video, which you don't need an expensive camera to do. Just use your phone, set it up on a stand, either to the side. If let's say you're watching your chin, then the side is great. It's also good for watching finger height. If you're trying to really watch your embouchure, then you might set the camera in front of you. But I like video just because you can choose to close your eyes and just listen, or you can mute it and watch. But we do this to find both weaknesses and strengths, because sometimes what you hear in your head is not what the audience hears. So essentially, your phone or whatever recording device you use is the audience. It lets you know what the audience is hearing. And sometimes there are things you don't think you're doing well, and you listen to a recording and you're like, hey, like that's pretty good, good job. And then sometimes there are things you think you're doing really well, and you listen to the recording and you're like, oh, what have I been doing? You know, but that's, regardless, it's a good thing, because when we perform, we want our audience to have a great experience. And by recording yourself and putting yourself in the audience's seat, um, you're kind of ensuring that you're giving the audience the best perspective, your best performance. And so I also like to point out, don't just focus on the negatives when you record yourself. I have a tendency to do that. I listen to a recording, I write down all the things I didn't like. Make sure you also write down things you did like, because no matter what you're playing, there is always something you did well. And it's good to give yourself that positive reinforcement. When you listen to that recording, what I usually tell my students to do is record yourself fewer times every week, 1 to 3 times a week, but listen to that recording multiple times. So maybe you listen once just for the notes, making sure you're getting all the correct notes. Then maybe you listen once for the rhythms, just to make sure you're getting the right rhythms. And then maybe once for articulation, once for tone, once for intonation, once for musicality, once for playing position. Just put it on mute and just watch yourself. And so right away, that's 7 different times you're listening to something. So I think you get more out of it if you record yourself fewer times, but listen to it, focusing on something different each time. So you're giving yourself a little more focus. You're trying to figure out, what is my left foot that's a few inches further out than it should be. And we use that then to focus our practicing, right? Just like Steph Curry did, his foot was a little too far out. And so then they focused just on that with his practicing. If you notice, like, oh, my pinky on my left hand always comes up really high, like I'm drinking tea. Well, okay, now that's something you have to practice, or you have to focus on during your practice sessions. And then, just like I said, Steph Curry watched this tape with his trainer. So, for us, our trainers are our coaches, our teachers, who are like our coaches, right? And then our teammates, our colleagues. So if you're playing in high school band, have some of your friends listen to your recording, and vice versa, and give each other feedback, because they might catch things that you don't. Or you might be so focused on your pinky that you're not paying attention to something else that they will catch. So like I said, you can use this to focus your practicing. So if you listen to a recording, you say, okay, I know the problem. My fingers are coming up too high. I watch the video and it just looks like I'm waving when I play clarinet. All right, well, now we know that's the problem. So now I need to come up with a targeted exercise. And for that, you might use the pinky trick. And for time's sake, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this, but I have a link to a longer explanation on my website. But essentially, what I do is I take my pinky and I gently rest it on any pinky key. I don't push it down, but it's just gently touching the key. And then I play slowly. And there's something about gently resting your pinky on one of the pinky keys that kind of forces your hand to relax and have your fingers in that nice curved playing position that we like, that we want. So that's a really good trick for focusing on flying fingers. So if you know that's the problem, the pinky trick is a good solution. It works on both hands. I just didn't want to hold my clarinet up high enough to show you the right hand. Another problem might be when you get to the high notes, it goes really sharp and they're really pinched, right? You play a scale and it sounds really pinched. You have a tuner and it goes really high or really sharp. Um, then you probably need to work on a pointed chin. That's a really common problem. On high notes, you'll get chins collapsing, embouchures collapsing, and you put more pressure than you need with your jaw, and that causes you to pinch the reed off. So, working on a pointed chin, which is something you might do playing in a mirror, so you can watch your chin and see if it's coming up. I also have a link to a good video about this on my website. Some exercises I like to do to work on a pointed chin. It's also good. This is a good time to practice with a tuner or a drone. I prefer a drone because it has you work on your ear, matching pitch with that drone. And most tuner apps on phones have a drone setting. If you're young and you're not so sure if you're matching pitch, or if you're just fairly new to music and clarinet, and you're not sure if you're matching pitch, then play with a tuner, and that tuner will show you if you're sharp or flat. But if you can hear it, I think it's better to play with a drone, so that way you're developing your ear at the same time as you're working on your high notes. And then I think, yes, finally, going back to that Mozart example, you might be playing through your Mozart concerto and you get to this measure and you go, oh, this measure is terrible. It's just awful. I know I can't play this measure. But then you record yourself and you realize, you know what? It's not actually the whole measure that I can't play well. It's actually just those three notes. So then you can take that same mix things up stuff that we were doing, where you're playing with different rhythms, different articulations, and rather than wasting your time doing the whole measure, you can come up, with exercises that just focus on those three notes. Just different rhythms, different articulations with those three notes. And then as you get more comfortable, expand. So rather than just those three notes, now add the note that comes next. So you're playing four notes. Now add the note that comes before. Now you're playing five notes. And then you expand to the whole measure. But you're focused in on the cause of the problem in the measure rather than the measure as a whole. And this is just one of those ways. It doesn't seem like it would save that much time, but it does. And even if it saves 5 minutes, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, that all adds up. That's hours of practice time that you would have been wasting, that now you could use for more practice, listening to music, watching basketball, whatever it might be. Oh, yes, for this, there's also a really good first finger trick. So, I said it was the A, G sharp, B that gave me trouble. And Michael Lowenstern has a really great trick for this up on YouTube. I have a link to that on my website as well. But essentially, he takes his first finger and leaves it as if he's playing an F sharp. And then as he's playing, he leaves his first finger down and plays the A key and the G sharp key. And that tells you where on your finger you should be hitting those keys in order to keep the pad of your first finger hovering above the F sharp. And so that's a way to kind of make sure your first finger is in the proper place for you to play this passage successfully. So I'll have that link on my website. It's easier to watch him do it with the close-ups than to have me kind of awkwardly hold my clarinet up to the camera. All right, so just a couple other um, things before I kind of open it up to questions. But peer pressure, right? We always think of peer pressure as bad. We learn it. I don't know if anyone else had Dare, but it's always peer pressure is bad. People at school are going to try to pressure you into doing bad things, but peer pressure can be a good thing, right? If you have a study group for school, that's a form of peer pressure because you have a responsibility to all of those people to do your assignments, to do your readings, to show up to the study group. So we can do the same thing as clarinetists. Get a bunch of your friends together and trade videos, right? I said, I think you should record yourself at least once a week. So every Friday, every whatever, you and your friends send each other a video of you playing something, and you exchange videos for feedback. And then you're committed. You have to do it every Friday. I always think about when I was in high school, just really the only sport I was any good at was running because I'm really uncoordinated. And let's face it, distance running, the only coordination you need is left, right, don't fall down. So that was the only thing I was a little good at. But I had a group of friends, and over the summer, we'd meet at 6 a.m. every morning, 6 days a week to work out. And you had to be ready to go at 6 a.m. Did we always want to? Absolutely not. Most of the time, we did not want to get up that early. But there was that peer pressure. If you didn't wake up, if you didn't get there on time, you were letting everyone else down. And so, the peer pressure, it might be that they give you a hard time if you don't show up, but it also means that, after I had a bad race, my friends who I trained with were going to help pick me back up, right? And so it's the same thing. You're discouraged. Your peers, your clarinet friends are going to help, encourage you. And maybe if you're getting a little bit down, but it's good to have that group of people. And with technology now, it's even easier. You don't even need to see each other in person to have that group. And I think this is the last thing before I open it up to questions. Practice being nervous. I used to think that I'd reach a point in my career where I stopped being nervous to perform. And that's absolutely not true. Um, in fact, I learned that no matter how far you go in your career, you never stop being nervous. My mom was a teacher and in education for a very long time. And it was only like in the past 10 years after she had been in education for decades that she told me she still got a little nervous for the first day of school. Um, so we're never going to stop being nervous as performers, but what we can do is learn to control those nerves. So if you think of, the more you can play for people, the more you can put yourself in situations where you get nervous. They'll do this with athletes. They'll have them practice with like really loud music or with flash bulbs going off to recreate what it's like during the game. But really, the best thing you can do if you talk to veteran athletes, the the reason they can deal with their nerves in big game situations is honestly because they failed before. You're willing to take the game-winning shot or try to throw the game-winning touchdown if you've failed at it before, because you've had the experience of it not working and realizing, okay, well, this didn't go well, but the earth is still here. I'm still here. Lightning didn't strike me. My friends and family still love me. It's not the end of the world. And I think as musicians, it's the same thing. Once you've had the experience of, oh, that performance did not go well. Yes, you feel really bad about it afterwards. I tell my students to use that feeling to kind of encourage or motivate them to practice more for the next one. Um, but you kind of realize, like, okay, I can have a bad day and it's not the end of the world. And I think that's what helps you sort of have better control of your nerves, is just the experience of having gone through it. Both good performances and bad performances. Everyone has good days and bad days. And just the more you do it, the easier it is to deal with. And something, I think, so one, if you're nervous because you're unprepared, there's not a lot you can do about that. You're unprepared, right? If I'm running a marathon and the longest I've ever run is 3 miles, yeah, it's going to be a really bad day for me. There's nothing I can do about it. But I can learn my lesson and train better for the next marathon. If you're nervous because you didn't practice enough and you're unprepared for your performance, remember that feeling and then use it as motivation for the next time. And something I think we as teachers, if there are any other teachers out there, something I think we can do is talk more to students about I don't even want to say failures, because I think anytime you put forth the effort, it's no matter what the outcome, it's not a failure. But if we talked more about performances that didn't go well, if we talk more about times we, maybe didn't practice as much as we should have and learned our lesson, if we talk to our students more about our human experiences and they don't think that we're perfect and therefore they have to be perfect, I also think that does a lot for nerves as well. The greatest experience I ever had was hearing a world-renowned clarinetist squeak twice on a performance. I'm not going to say who it was, but hearing this person play, it didn't make me think any less of them. Instead, I heard them squeak and I thought, oh my God, they're human, like just like me. And that just made me feel so much better about myself as a clarinetist. All right. Oh, this was the very last thing, and this is very quick, and then questions. Um, a lot of times we think improvement happens like this: if I work hard and practice, I'm just going to keep getting better every day. Improvement. Um, yeah, that's. I wish that's the way it worked, but that's not the way it works. Improvement looks more like this. Sometimes you get rapid improvement. Everything's clicking and you feel like, yeah, I'm better today than I was 1 week ago. And then sometimes you're practicing every day regularly, you're doing everything you should, and it just feels like you're not going anywhere. It's just flat. There are even days where you feel like you've gotten worse. Like, oh, I could tongue this at 100 yesterday and I can only do it at 90 today. What's wrong with me? That stuff happens. But if you look at the big picture, if you zoom out, you're still improving over time. It's just that everyone has bad days or weeks. You're not getting as much sleep, or you haven't, you're not eating well, or sometimes it's just a fluke. Your body you're fighting off a cold or whatever. You don't even know what it is. But you just need to know that if you keep practicing and you keep focusing on practicing the right way and you stay patient and stay positive, make sure you keep enjoying playing clarinet, that overall improvement will go up even if it's not doing that every day. All right. So now, if there are any questions, and I have my website up there again with the links to the practice stuff. On my website, you can contact me if you have questions after this, or I have my Instagram handle up there if you want to contact me through that as well.
Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Gersten?
So feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask, or you can type it into the chat if you're a little shy and don't want to speak.
We do have a question in the chat from Carlos who is asking, would you recommend keeping a practice log of the things we work on? And if so, would you include time spent?
Yes, actually, I'm really glad you asked that. So I can't believe I didn't include this in here. I think I cut it for time. But I like to have both a log of what you practice, but I like to actually write out what I'm going to practice. So it's another way to kind of make efficient use of your time. If I know I have an hour, I'm going to spend 15 minutes on this, 10 minutes on that, 20 minutes on that. Just as a way to kind of focus my practicing. But then I think it's a really good way to kind of look back. And if you realize, you know, I've gotten pretty good at this. You know, my tone has gotten so much better, but my articulations are just really thuddy and slow. Then you can look back through your practice log and go, oh, you know what? I haven't been doing articulation exercises, or I haven't been doing them as much as I maybe thought. So it's just a good way to be able to go back and reflect, but also plan ahead. If you're someone who picks up your clarinet and you're like, what was I going to do? Or you're someone who picks up their clarinet and you play, but it's just sort of like, I'm going to play this, I'm going to play that. And you're not really focused. It's a good way to kind of focus yourself.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Dr. Gersten? You're getting a lot of thank yous, very much appreciated. Very helpful for me, a lot of really great comments.
Well, and thank you to all the people before everyone logs off. Thank you to everyone who came to this. And like I said, if you have questions later, you can always contact me.
Excellent. Well, if we don't have any additional questions, I want to go ahead and thank again our guest artist clinician today, Dr. Michael Gersten, for sharing his practice insights. Thank you also to Shannon McDonald, Karen DeBush, and Jonathan Steltzer, the subcommittee that planned all of our March workshops. And finally, thank all of you for attending. We are doing these for you, as Dr. Gersten said at the beginning. So please feel free to get in touch with us and give us some feedback via the feedback poll that I posted. And don't miss our next workshop. We have 4 more workshops coming up this spring on Sunday, not Saturday, Sunday, April 11th, when Sean Perrin, Larkin Sanders, and Ford Fortgreen will take part in a panel discussion on career paths post-graduation. For more information about the ICA Youth Committee, or to go to visit the ICA events calendar, to find more events, click on the links in the chat. And we look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.